Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
Thanks for joining us on Big Fox News tonight. I'm Scott Beadle. A torrential downpour caused massive flooding in parts of Watkins Glen overnight. Now residents and businesses are working to clean up that damage. Matt Kleindienst is in Corning with the latest on those efforts.
Good evening, Scott. Last night's flooding turned several streets in Watkins Glen into rivers, and the water caused damage for several businesses in the area. The water has receded. However, the evidence of last night's flood still remain. Heavy rain caused water to rise in several parts of Watkins Glen. Village residents I spoke with off-camera tell me that much of Franklin Street was submerged in over 2 feet of water. The water caused damages to several buildings, including the Seneca Harbor Wine Center. An employee I spoke with said this is around the 15th time the wine cellar had flooded in a matter of years. The employee went on to say that recent road work was supposed to prevent debris from clogging storm drains resulting from heavy downpours. The heavy rain also caused water levels and floating debris to increase in Lake Seneca, resulting in a boating advisory. The southern tier is expecting more storms over the weekend. Matt Kleindienst, Big Fox, WYDC in Corning.
The American Academy of Pediatrics has released new mask recommendations for schools in the wake of increased Delta variant COVID cases. The AAP recommends that all kids ages 2 and up wear masks in class regardless of vaccination status. Steuben County Health Director Darlene Smith believes there's a chance that New York students will return to school wearing masks.
With all that's going on with the Delta variant and with some of this mixed messaging coming out and recommendations, I think that there is certainly great potential for us to see the start of the school year with everyone wearing masks again.
New York lifted in-school mask mandates for kids attending summer school earlier in the month. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio making an announcement today in the fight against COVID-19. The mayor says that all New York City health workers will be required to get a COVID-19 vaccine. For those who choose not to get vaccinated, they will have to receive weekly COVID-19 tests. This new policy will go into effect on August 2nd. The mayor says the vaccines are key in protecting the community, especially as COVID-19 cases linked to the Delta variant rise across the country.
We see the Delta variant and we see the case numbers rising, and it's time to act. So today we announce something new, a COVID safety requirement for our health workers, the workers we depend on the most and the workers who are the most vulnerable.
According to the New York State Health Department, nearly 40% of hospital workers in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Staten Island are unvaccinated, while Manhattan and Queens are near or above average in vaccination rates. As COVID-19 numbers continue to spike around the country, the Biden administration is extending non-essential travel restrictions for the northern and southern borders. According to a Federal Register notice, the restrictions will go into effect Thursday and remain until August 21st. Now, these restrictions aren't new. The U.S. has been limiting non-essential travel along both borders since the start of the pandemic. U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents, as well as people traveling for medical purposes or to attend school, are exempt from these restrictions. Life expectancy in the U.S. just suffered its biggest one-year drop since World War II, and public health officials are blaming most of that on COVID. This comes as the debate over face masks and the origins of the virus heats up on Capitol Hill. Doug Luzader has more from Washington.
A life expectancy here dropped by about 1.5 years in 2020 as we continue to struggle with the virus and get more Americans vaccinated.
And y'all who don't have a shot mask, get one.
Even while hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the White House, the president stuck to his script, get vaccinated. But just down the street in Congress, it was getting ugly.
And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Dr. Anthony Fauci tried to fend off accusations from Kentucky Senator Rand Paul that the U.S. funded what's called gain-of-function research that could have touched off the pandemic. Top health officials also didn't budge on official face mask guidance. Those who have been fully vaccinated generally don't have to wear them, they say, despite more talk about mandates.
We don't regret coming to D.C.
No regrets from that group of Texas Democratic lawmakers who fled their state to block Republican voting reforms there. But on their unmasked journey to D.C., they may have carried COVID with them. At least 8 cases may now be connected to the trip after they met with Democratic officials from the vice president on down. It's a reminder that while COVID vaccines do protect against the risk of serious illness, they're not perfect.
But it looks like against the Delta variant, they're not as protective against preventing mild or asymptomatic disease, and possibly not as effective against preventing spread.
And that Delta variant now accounts for some 83% of new cases here. In Washington, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
A New York police officer is being praised for his bravery after he risked his life to save others Monday. Check out this body cam video showing Officer Mark Conklin running toward a house engulfed in flames. Police say children and one adult were trapped in the home. Despite standing next to the extreme heat, Officer Conklin directed the trapped occupants to jump from the upstairs window, catching them as they came down. A local police chief says Conklin's actions were, quote, one of the most outstanding examples of bravery, heroism, and exemplary service he has ever seen. The house occupants were taken to a local hospital for smoke inhalation. No other serious injuries were sustained. Rochester, New York Mayor Lovely Warren and her estranged husband, Timothy Granison, were in court today. Both pleaded not guilty to multiple charges against them, including criminal possession of a firearm, endangering the welfare of a child, and failure to lock or secure firearms in a dwelling. Those charges stem from a raid at the mayor's home on Woodman Park back in May. The raid was part of an investigation into Granison, who's believed to be part of a drug ring. During the raid, officials say they found a pistol and rifle, as well as the couple's 10-year-old daughter home alone. The mayor and Granison were released on their own recognizance. President Biden says the U.S. has accomplished its mission in Afghanistan, but as troops continue returning home, Afghans fear the Taliban is just gaining more control in the Middle East. Marianne Rafferty reports.
The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan is now more than 95% complete, ahead of the August 31st deadline. It's news former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is happy about, bluntly saying it's time the Afghans took matters into their own hands.
They need to fight for their own country. We don't need to send Americans to fight if the Afghan people aren't willing to fight for their freedom.
But as the U.S. moves out, the Taliban continues creeping back in. Taliban officials recently claiming to have regained control of roughly 85% of Afghanistan, something Afghan leaders fully denounce, as government officials completed a round of peace talks with Taliban leaders Monday. However, efforts to achieve peace remain fragile. ISIS is claiming responsibility for 3 rocket strikes near the Afghan presidential palace Tuesday. And Afghanistan's president spells out a message to all terrorists that the country will not fall. But back home at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware, senior chaplain David Sparks is ready to see an end to the conflict that's killed more than 2,000 American soldiers. Sparks has spent the last 20 years guiding the families of the deceased through prayer as the remains of their loved ones killed overseas return to U.S. soil.
Pray for a time when nations do not rise up against nations.
Meanwhile, fears of the Taliban's resurgence haunt many Afghans, with the Biden administration now working to help more than 2,000 who previously worked for the U.S. settle at a military base in Virginia. Marianne Rafferty, Fox News.
If you've tried to buy a home recently, you know the process is very competitive right now. The hot housing market has forced many buyers to pay well above asking price. But reporter Linda Williams spoke to a real estate analyst who says recent trends show the market could be cooling off just a bit.
A would-be homebuyer battered and bruised by the Valley's hot housing market. Tracy Stogliński lives at a month-to-month rental in Chandler now after making an offer on 15 houses in recent months and not managing to get any of them.
It's been a lot of different scenarios that have just been like, wow, what next? I've learned a lot about real estate and shopping for houses. I used to enjoy it. I don't enjoy it anymore.
A ray of hope for home buyers from senior housing analyst Tina Tambour. She sees the housing market starting to cool in the Phoenix Valley.
It's the difference between, say, 500 degrees and 300 degrees. You know, yeah, it's cooling, but nobody's going to notice that unless you're actually measuring the temperature. And that's what we do here.
Tambour sees subtle shifts like more home sellers dropping their list prices, specifically in homes over $400,000.
That is in response to an increase in supply. So the supply actually stopped dropping at the end of February and started rising. And then give it another couple of months and people started to notice.
Tracy says she has noticed more inventory this week. She's expanded her search area, has cut her list of must-haves, and isn't giving up her search.
I have seen the drops in prices, and some of the houses that I have looked at have either come back on market, maybe buyers decided to not purchase them for whatever reason.
Still ahead tonight, a worried daughter urges her father to get a COVID vaccine.
I did, take it upon myself to kind of learn about the vaccine a little bit better because I know there's people in my family who are not comfortable with it.
We'll hear from the Indianapolis dad who got the shot because of his daughter and what his final thoughts were on making the decision.
Here's your local stock market update from Big Fox. Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
Tonight's Big Fox forecast is brought to you by William Mattar. Good evening, everyone. It has been so much more refreshing today, especially with that cold front coming through. It really dried things out and it cooled things down. Now that winds are coming from the northeast, it is going to remain relatively pleasant as we head into the next couple of days. So today it was about 13 degrees cooler in Elmira, 12 in Corning, and about 15 degrees cooler in Watkins Glen. We are going to enjoy this weather, at least for your Thursday. High pressure builds in from the west. We are going to continue to be on the east side of it tomorrow, and so that's going to be the drier and cooler side of this high pressure system. But notice what happens on the back side of it. It will start to get warmer, and there is the possibility of rain as we head toward the weekend. But take a look at these dew points. Now we have dropped down into the 50s. Earlier today it was in the 60s, and yesterday it was actually in the 70s, so it did feel a little bit muggy outside. But we're going to enjoy drier air through about Friday. But notice what happens on Saturday. Those dew points climb up a little bit, and that's an indication of moisture returning. And so that muggy air will be back. It's not going to be too unbearable, but it is going to be just a little bit more muggy as we head into the weekend. This comes ahead of a low pressure system that will be moving through. And so as a result, we do have the possibility of rain Saturday night into your Sunday. So just keep that in mind if you have any outdoor plans. Our future radar is showing quiet weather for tonight. A few clouds moving in the overnight and during the day tomorrow, but it's not going to be a big concern. I don't think those clouds will bring any rain. And then moving into your Friday, it looks like it's going to start off pretty nice. There will be a few isolated showers off to our east. Some of those might hit some of our hometowns, but overall, I think most of us will see dry conditions. But take a look at what happens as we move into your Saturday. So we start off dry for most of the day on Saturday, and then as we head into the latter part of the day, clouds will start to increase. There will be a few showers and maybe even an isolated thunderstorm or two late in the evening, and it becomes a little bit more widespread for your Sunday. Here's a look at your forecast. Tonight we drop down to around 52 degrees in Elmira, 53 degrees in Corning. It's been a while since we've seen lows in the 50s because it's been so muggy, but now that drier air is in place, it will allow those temperatures to drop. 77 degrees in Elmira tomorrow, 76 in Corning, and 73 degrees in Perkinsville. Your extended forecast calls for pleasant conditions through your Friday, but there could be a few showers by the end of the day. We really warm up as we head toward the weekend, but it's going to be very close to normal. It's not going to be too bad. 84 degrees on a Sunday with widespread rain, and then we start to dry out again early next week. But that warm air will stick around by Wednesday. Highs will be around 86.
An Axios Ipsos poll finds that a majority of unvaccinated people aren't likely to get a COVID shot anytime soon. A quarter or less say they could be convinced under certain circumstances. That's what happened to an Indianapolis father who got the shot because of his daughter, who's training to become a pharmacist. Steve Jefferson has the story.
This photo shows the moment Ryan Cole's life changed forever.
That moment right there. Oh man, so I'm getting vaccinated.
The Indianapolis father, against his daughter's wishes, had his reasons for refusing vaccination against COVID-19.
Hearing it's a microchip in it. It's, remember Tuskegee, and things of that nature.
Despite those concerns, wait until you learn the moment that sold Brian on getting his shots. His daughter Aaliyah is a Butler University pharmacy major. Yes, every moment of her life she's been a daddy's girl. So guess what she did for her family and her father?
I did, take it upon myself to kind of learn about the vaccine a little bit better because I know there's people in my family who are not comfortable with it.
There was never a moment Aaliyah backed down debating dad about getting vaccinated. Eventually, her father posted this on the app Nextdoor, saying his daughter won their little disagreement.
I was just so happy. Like, he's very stubborn, I'm very stubborn. It's just like a big weight was off my shoulder. I was like, oh, finally.
When I got my second shot, I told her, I was like, a big chunk of this is because of you.
Brian hopes people here in the metro area will follow him and get vaccinated, especially after what happened to his son. COVID forced Brian to become his son's primary caregiver. Helpless moments he'll never forget.
There was nothing I could do but keep bringing him water like I was, keep bringing him soup, and there was nothing I could do. And to have that helpless feeling.
So now Brian cherishes this moment where his son rolled up his sleeve too.
So we're all vaccinated.
Fewer children and teens got prescription medications during the bulk of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's according to a study that found a significant drop in prescriptions for one type of drug. But one pediatrician notes there has been a concerning rise of other drugs treating mental health conditions in younger patients. Steve Nannis has more in today's Health Minute.
Missed doctor visits and fewer prescription medications for children and teens during the pandemic. That's according to a report in the journal Pediatrics, which found a drop of nearly 80% in cough medicines given for the common cold and a 56% decrease in antibiotic prescriptions. The report found prescriptions for other drugs also fell, with the exception of antidepressants. California pediatrician Dr. Stephen Abelowitz says 1 year of home learning took a toll on children and says more kids are on edge.
Because of many of the detrimental effects of COVID, anxiety, and depression, we're prescribing more anti-anxiety and antidepressant medications.
Researchers tracked data between April and December of 2019 and compared it to the same period last year. Researchers say the drop in antibiotics most likely reflects a decrease in infections like colds and strep throat due to COVID-19 safety measures, like social distancing and masks. But health officials also cite issues with healthcare access during the pandemic.
Difficulty finding available providers, available services, sometimes lacking the smartphone or broadband needed to connect with telehealth care or other digital tools.
Citing potential side effects, some health officials have welcomed the drop in antibiotics dispensing. Still, some are worried about antidepressants for children becoming a growing trend.
Over the last year, we've probably prescribed more of those medications than accumulatively the last 20 to 22 years prior, which is horrible.
For Health Minute, I'm Steve Nannis.
A trained crisis response dog got hurt while helping after the Surfside condo collapse. And that injury made returning home difficult. That is, until a Good Samaritan stepped in. Nicole Insalata has the story.
Teddy has a personality that just seems to draw your heart out.
And in an environment with little hope, like the rubble pile at Champlain Tower South in Surfside, Comfort Dog Teddy did just that for first responders. Sophia Barrett, Teddy's owner, is from Hollywood but now lives in Philadelphia.
It's horrible what is happening in Surfside, and to be able to be that bright spot in people's days was a privilege.
She and the 6-year-old rescue, a trained crisis response dog, spent 3 weeks in Surfside until he was injured, his back legs just not working.
Teddy is a Basset Hound Lab mix, and he's kind of got a longer back. So his owner thinks maybe that, in combination with being out on those rocks and being in the heat for about 3 weeks, may have led to that injury.
His vet said flying home commercial would be too stressful and a long drive would be too hard on him. So Sophia made an appeal for help. Enter Titan Aviation Group.
When I'm having a bad day, my dog puts a smile on my face. And so what he was doing down there was great. As soon as I saw it, I wanted to get involved.
His company offered a ride on a Hawker 800 XP 8-seater.
Teddy will have first-class service, of course. He's going to be on a private jet and air conditioning, of course. And I'm sure he'll have access to some water as well.
Oh, it's even better than that. While he needed some help getting up the stairs and some guidance making his way through the cabin,
he's doing it.
He had a comfy couch all to himself. Once he was settled and happy, the jet took off for Philly. The rescue of the rescuer just about complete.
He was out there and worked his heart out to meet all those people and to give them a lick and be friendly with them.
Big men that are in these rubbles grabbing the dog's face and just giving him a hug. He brings them relief.
Some grocery stores in the U.S. are giving a popular ice cream maker the cold shoulder. Several kosher grocery stores have decided to pull Ben & Jerry's from the shelves. It comes after the company announced it would stop doing business with a licensee in Israel that sells ice cream in Israeli-occupied Palestinian territories. The Israeli settlements in the West Bank are considered illegal under international law, but critics have called Ben & Jerry's decision anti-Semitic and have pushed for the company to reverse the move. Ben & Jerry's is owned by food giant Unilever. The company says its ice cream will still be sold in Israel, but, quote, through a different arrangement. A dog that got carried away, figuratively and literally, while swimming in the sea, was found miles from where he went in. Jeremy Roth has today's Take a Look at This.
A little dog named Ollie had to be exhausted after UK authorities say he was found on a rocky outcropping in Wales 3 miles from where he went into the ocean. After going for a swim near Newton Point, the Springer Spaniel reportedly just kept on paddling out to sea. He was missing for 3 hours and was discovered on some cliffs near Southern Down, which is roughly 3 miles away.
What a swimmer you are, eh?
Volunteer responders with the Royal National Lifeboat Institution rescued Ollie and returned him safely to his owner, and if it's any consolation, he seemed to really enjoy the boat ride back. In what's being described as one of the most important Jurassic sites ever discovered in the UK, a team of scientists unearthed tens of thousands of fossils from the same site over a 3-day dig. The group of fossils has been dated at roughly 167 million years old and contains some species previously unknown to scientists. They believe the site near Cotswold was once a warm, shallow sea. Approximately 100 slabs have been collected for continued studies. In your own dining room is the last place you'd expect to be hit by a car, but that's what happened in Afton, Missouri, when a vehicle came through the wall of a man's home, striking him in the back. Amazingly, the homeowner was okay and refused medical treatment. The driver, who officials say had suffered a medical emergency, was sent to a local hospital. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
We want to leave you with a smile tonight. Get out the mustard. It's time to celebrate a summertime staple. Today is National Hot Dog Day. The National Hot Dog and Sausage Council estimates that Americans consume as many as 20 billion hot dogs every year. And what's not to love? It's easy to cook, in the microwave, on the stove, or over an open fire. And it's the perfect food while you're in the stands watching a game. Plus, topping choices are endless. From ketchup, mustard, relish, and onions, to mayo, cheese, chili, and sauerkraut. And don't forget the celery salt. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.